The sun was hot over Kisewa town, but all anyone could see was the scene unfolding in the busy market. Mama Atieno stormed through the crowd, dragging Nyambura by the wrist like she was nothing. "Thief!" she shouted. "You think you can steal from me and get away with it?" Heads turned, eyes followed, whispers began. Nyambura, just 15, wore a torn dress and had no shoes on her feet. Her cheeks were stained with tears, her face red with shame and fear. The market women paused their bargaining. Fruit sellers stopped mid-shout. Children clutched their mothers' skirts. Everyone stared as Mama Atieno pushed Nyambura forward like a criminal, holding up a shiny bracelet. "This was in her bag," she cried. "She stole it from my bedroom." Nyambura shook her head. Words stuck in her throat. "I didn't," she tried to say, but her voice was too soft. No one listened. No one cared. Her stepmother's voice was louder, meaner, and in that moment, it was the only one that mattered. People started murmuring, some laughing, others nodding. Nyambura looked around, searching for her father, Mzibaraka, but he wasn't there. She was alone. Every step through the market felt heavier than the last. Shame wrapped around her like a dirty blanket. Strangers judged her. Some spat near her feet. A few even took out their phones. One woman hissed, "What kind of girl steals from her own home?" Nyambura wanted to scream, to tell them the truth. But how could she fight so many voices with just one broken heart? And so, in front of the whole town, she walked her own shame parade, punished for a crime she didn't commit. What the people of Kisewa didn't know was that the shouting in the market wasn't really about a stolen bracelet. It was never about theft. It was about something much deeper: jealousy, bitterness, and a heart full of hatred. Mama Atieno had never liked Nyambura. From the first day she stepped into that house as Mzibaraka's new wife, she looked at the quiet, kind-eyed girl with coldness. Nyambura was not her child. She reminded Mama Atieno of the woman who came before her, the first wife, the one people still spoke kindly of. Nyambura had her mother's eyes, her calm nature, her grace, and somehow all that made Mama Atieno's heart burn. She never showed open cruelty, not at first, but the little things began. Ignoring Nyambura at dinner, making her scrub floors while her own children played, giving her torn clothes to wear while others had new ones, and worst of all, turning Mzibaraka against his daughter slowly, like poison in tea. But Mama Atieno wanted more. She wanted Nyambura gone, out of the house, out of sight. So she made a plan. One morning, when no one was watching, she slipped a shiny gold bracelet into Nyambura's old school bag. It belonged to her, yes, but now it was her weapon. Later that day, she called out to the town with drama in her voice and fire in her eyes. "She stole from me," she cried, holding the bracelet high for everyone to see. And just like that, the story spread like wildfire. Nyambura didn't even understand what was happening. She didn't know about the trap until it was too late. She kept asking herself, why me? What did I do wrong? But in Mama Atieno's heart, the answer was simple. Nyambura existed, and that was reason enough. The people believed the lie because it came with noise and tears. But the truth was quiet, hidden, and cruel. This wasn't about a bracelet. This was about a woman who couldn't stand the light in a young girl's eyes, so she tried to destroy it. After the chaos in the market, Nyambura thought things couldn't get worse, but they did. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, her own father, Mzibaraka, stood in the doorway, eyes cold, mouth tight. "You've shamed this family," he said. No hug, no questions, no chance to explain. Just a few harsh words and a black plastic bag with her few belongings inside. He didn't even look at her as she stepped out. The door closed behind her with a sound she would never forget. That was the moment she knew she had been truly abandoned by the town, by her family, by the one person she had once trusted most. With no money, no shoes, and no one to turn to, Nyambura walked, past the market that had mocked her, past the houses that had shut their doors, past the memories that clung to her like shadows. She walked until her feet bled, her throat was dry, her legs were shaking, but still, she kept going. The sky turned dark. The road stretched on like it had no end. Nyambura didn't know where she was heading. She just knew she had to keep moving. She remembered hearing of a small village far away, where good people still lived. It was a faint hope, but it was all she had. After hours, maybe even days of walking, her strength gave out. Her legs folded under her, and she collapsed near a fence covered in wild flowers, her body too weak to rise again. That's where Mama Njeri found her, a retired teacher with silver hair and sharp eyes. Mama Njeri was known for her wisdom and kindness. She saw the dirt on Nyambura's face, the fear in her eyes, and the pain hidden deep in her silence. Without asking questions, she lifted the girl into her arms like she was her own. In that moment, under a quiet sky and a stranger's gentle touch, Nyambura finally let go. The tears came, the truth came, and for the first time in days, she felt something that had almost vanished: hope. Mama Njeri's home was small but warm, filled with books, flowers, and the smell of tea leaves and kindness. For the first few days, Nyambura didn't speak much. Her body was weak, but her heart was even more broken. She would wake up crying in the middle of the night, haunted by memories of the market, the cruel faces, and the cold silence of her father. But Mama Njeri never rushed her. She would sit by her bed, holding her hand, whispering, "You're safe now, my child. Nobody will hurt you here." Slowly, Nyambura began to heal. Mama Njeri cooked soft porridge, rubbed her blistered feet with warm oil, and gave her clothes that actually fit. Most of all, she gave her something no one else had offered in a long time: love without condition. When Nyambura was strong enough to walk again, Mama Njeri surprised her one morning with a simple question: "Would you like to go back to school?" Nyambura's eyes widened. She hadn't thought about school since everything fell apart. She nodded shyly. With that, Mama Njeri marched her to the local school and talked to the head teacher like she was speaking about her own granddaughter. "She's special," she said. "Give her a chance." And they did. At first, Nyambura sat in the back of the class, quiet and unsure. But one day, during an English lesson, the teacher asked the students to write a short story. Nyambura put her pen down to paper, and something magical happened. The words just flowed. Her pain turned into poetry. Her shame became strength. Her truth came alive in stories. The teacher was stunned. "Where did you learn to write like this?" she asked. Nyambura just smiled a little and said, "From life." She entered a national writing competition with a story titled "The Girl They Shamed." It was raw, honest, and powerful. Weeks later, a letter arrived. She had won. Not just the school prize, the national one. For the first time in her life, people clapped for her. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. That letter wasn't just a win. It was a message from the universe. Your story matters, and it's just beginning. The day Nyambura's story was posted online, everything changed. Mama Njeri had shared it on a local blog, just proud of her girl. But no one expected what happened next. Within hours, people started reading The Girl They Shamed, and they couldn't stop. The story was raw. It was painful, but it was powerful. Readers cried. Others sent messages saying, "Yeksan, this is my story too." Within a week, it had gone viral. Big newspapers picked it up. Radio stations talked about it. Her name trended on social media. People were amazed that someone so young could write with such truth, such strength, and so much heart. Then came the phone call that changed everything. An invitation to speak at a youth conference in Nairobi. Nyambura stared at the phone in shock. Nairobi, the big city, cameras, microphones, all for her. At first she was scared. "What if I freeze? What if I mess up?" she asked Mama Njeri. But Mama Njeri just smiled and said, "Speak from your heart, and the world will listen." And it did. In Nairobi, Nyambura stood on a huge stage, light shining in her eyes, a room full of strangers watching. Her voice trembled at first, but then she told her story: the market, the shame, the lies, the long walk, the healing, and the writing. She didn't cry. She didn't hold back. She just spoke her truth. The crowd rose to its feet. People clapped. Some wiped tears from their eyes. One woman in the front row whispered, "She's a star." After that, more invitations came. Schools, universities, women's groups, even international events across Africa wanted to hear from the girl who turned pain into purpose. Her book was published and became a bestseller. Photos of her holding it with a soft, proud smile were everywhere. But Nyambura didn't chase fame. She always said, "This isn't just my story. It's for every girl who's ever been silenced, shamed, or forgotten." She wasn't just a writer anymore. She was a voice, a light, a rising star born not in comfort but in fire. And she was just getting started. The studio lights were bright, and the cameras were rolling. Nyambura sat on the soft red couch of one of the most watched talk shows in the country. She looked calm on the outside, But inside, her heart was pounding. This was national TV. Millions of people were watching, and for the first time, someone asked her the one question she had been quietly waiting for. Nyambura, the host said gently, your story has touched so many hearts, but there's something people still don't know. What really happened in Kisewa? There was a long pause. Nyambura took a breath. She looked down for a moment, then up into the camera, not just to answer the question, but to finally speak her truth. I was accused of something I didn't do, she began softly. My stepmother dragged me through the market, called me a thief. People spat at me. My father turned his back on me. I had nothing. No one. I walked for miles, and I never looked back. Her voice didn't shake. She didn't cry. There was no hate in her tone. Just truth, raw and honest. But if that day never happened, she continued, I wouldn't have met Mama Njeri. Back in Kisewa, when the interview aired on television and spread across social media, the whole town was stunned into silence. The same people who had laughed and whispered about Nyambura now watched her story unfold on screens, seeing the truth behind the lies for the very first time. Mama Atieno, once the loudest voice accusing Nyambura, became the subject of harsh judgment. People shook their heads and whispered, calling her the disgrace of Kisewa. The woman who had tried to destroy a young girl's life was now the one everyone looked down on. Some neighbors stopped greeting her, and even old friends turned away. Her anger and cruelty had become her own punishment. Mzee Baraka, Nyambura's father, faced the town's questions. People asked why he had turned his back on his daughter without hearing her side, why he allowed the false accusations to ruin their family. His silence spoke louder than words, and slowly, the respect he once commanded faded away. The market, where Nyambura had been publicly shamed, was quieter now. Instead of gossip, there was regret. Instead of mockery, there was shame. The very town that had once watched her suffer with cruel eyes was now filled with sorrow for what they had allowed to happen. But amidst the shame, there was also a quiet hope. People began to talk about forgiveness, about learning from mistakes, and about standing up for what is right. Kisewa was changing, slowly but surely, because one girl's courage had opened everyone's eyes. The laughter was gone. In its place was a heavy silence, and a lesson no one would forget. Nyambura's return to Kisewa was quiet, but powerful. She didn't come back with anger or revenge in her heart. Instead, she carried a box full of books, a gift for the local school that once felt like a place of shame for her. As she walked through the streets, memories of pain and betrayal tried to pull her down, but she held her head high. This time, she was different, stronger, kinder, and full of hope. At the school, children gathered around, curious to see the girl who had once been the town's outcast. Some whispered, some stared, but Nyambura smiled warmly at each one of them. She knew how it felt to be small and forgotten, to feel like you don't belong. So she stood before the children and spoke from her heart. She told them about dreams, not the kind that disappear when life gets hard, but the kind that grow stronger with every challenge. She spoke about dignity, the quiet strength inside every person that no one can take away. And she talked about rising above hate, about choosing kindness, even when it's easier to be angry. Her words touched the children deeply. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others nodded slowly, understanding that their own struggles could one day turn into stories of hope. Nyambura handed out the books, telling each child, these are for you. Read them, learn, and believe in yourself. You are more powerful than you know. That day, Nyambura didn't just give books. She gave the children something much greater, a belief in themselves, and a promise that their past does not have to define their future. Her return was not about getting even. It was about giving back, healing, and lighting a path for others to follow. And in that small school in Kisewa, a new story began, one of hope, courage, and love. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally came. Cameras were set up in the small hall where Nyambura had agreed to meet Mama Atieno, her stepmother, the woman who had once dragged her through the market, shouting lies that broke her heart and nearly her life. Mama Atieno looked older now. The pride and anger that once filled her eyes were gone. She sat quietly, her hands shaking, her voice low as she began to speak. Nyambura, she said, her eyes glassy with tears. I don't even know if I deserve to speak to you. I was cruel. I was wrong. I destroyed your childhood. I was jealous. And I am sorry. The room fell silent. The cameras caught every second. Everyone watched Nyambura's face, waiting. Would she cry, walk away, shout, stay silent? But she stood still, calm. Her eyes didn't show hatred, just deep, quiet strength. She slowly walked over to Mama Atieno, looked into her tired eyes, and did something no one expected. She hugged her. It wasn't forced. It wasn't for show. It was real. A soft, long, healing hug. Then she whispered, "I came to heal, not to harm." Those words broke something open in the room. Even the camera crew wiped away tears. That one moment, a hug, a few words, carried more power than any revenge ever could. When the clip was posted online, it spread like wildfire. Millions watched it, shared it, cried over it. The caption that went viral said it all. "Forgiveness is louder than revenge." People from all over the world wrote messages. This gave me hope. She is the definition of grace. We need more Nyamburas in this world. In that moment, Nyambura didn't just forgive. She changed something deep in the hearts of everyone watching. She reminded the world that true strength isn't in holding on to pain, but in letting it go. Nyambura's story didn't end with the hug, or the viral clip, or even the interviews. That was just the beginning. She knew there were so many girls out there, just like she once was, hurting in silence, dreaming quietly, and being told they weren't enough. So she decided to turn her pain into purpose. She started a scholarship fund and called it Shame to Shine. It was more than just a name. It was a message, a promise, a light for every girl from a small village, every child told she didn't matter. The fund helped girls in rural areas go to school, buy uniforms, get books, and walk through life with their heads held high. Nyambura didn't just give money, she gave them hope. Word spread quickly. Journalists, filmmakers, even school children began sharing her story. Soon her life was turned into a movie, The Girl They Shamed. Audiences around the world cried in theaters as they watched a young girl face betrayal, walk through rejection, and rise with quiet power. From humiliation to headline, Nyambura had become something rare and beautiful, a symbol, a voice, a force. She was invited to global stages, shaking hands with presidents, and speaking to classrooms full of young girls, but she never let the fame change her heart. She always said, "This isn't about me. It's about every girl who thought she had no chance." Kisewa, once the place that broke her, now proudly named a street after her. In schools across Africa, her books sat on library shelves, and every time a young girl read her story, a spark lit inside her, the belief that maybe, just maybe, she too could rise. Nyambura's legacy wasn't just in words or awards. It lived in every girl who chose courage over silence, in every step taken toward a dream. She proved that even the deepest shame can be turned into the brightest shine.